Venus and star blessings, everyone. I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about the Venus star point, a subject that certainly has become a lot more popular over time. And one thing I find really cute about that is that Venus rules popularity. So that's an interesting little, sweet little correspondence. There's still a lot of people that don't really know how to work with the Venus star point. A lot of people still haven't even heard of it. I post some things on my Facebook page, the astrology Facebook page, and I've had a lot of people swoop through of late, like a couple of thousand literally, and there's a lot of them that make comments like, what's the Venus star point, things like that, which I suppose inspired me to just talk about Venus again today. As I've said before, the complexities of the mysteries of the goddess are so vast and so deep. And the deeper you go, the more you discover. It feels like her mysteries are just infinite, really. And since I've connected with Roman Kolev, he's introduced me to yet another level of the study of Venus and Venus's cycles, and specifically her heliacal phases. And all of that is extremely important. And as Roman says, everything in the sky is important. And I've been doing a fair bit of reading of late and reading a lot about the ancient astrologers, namely astrology and astrologers from Mesopotamian Babylonian times. And I'm just discovering a lot of interesting teachings from those sorts of studies. And, back in those days, the people of the land at that time had priestesses and priesthoods, and these priests and priestesses, they literally were astrologers. And they observed the sky 24/7. There was somebody, they were on shift, right? They were rotating on shift. And they were documenting literally everything from a cloud to a star appearing, disappearing, a planet appearing, disappearing, to comets, to whatever they noticed, because their fundamental principle, if you like, was the understanding of the unity between the sky and the earth. There's a unity between the sky and the earth, and the observation of what's happening in the sky enables us to see what is happening on the earth and to be able to make those correlations. Hence, they documented 24/7, something that has been neglected and forgotten for a very, very long time. We're talking about over 6,000 years ago, where things were written on clay tablets and so forth, right? So there's, an incredibly vast and rich, deep, complex history to the roots of astrology, which it goes way, way further than that as well. But I'm just talking about as far back as, say, 6,000 years ago, for instance. And Venus is a big part of this, because Ishtar, who is Venus, was one of the prime goddesses of a city called Akkad in Babylonia. So basically, in those times, each city or state had a very specific divinity associated with it. That particular divinity ruled over that city. And there were, kings and empires and, leaders and so on and so forth that had very specific gods and goddesses that that corresponded to the energy, if you like, of that city or that state. And Ishtar, Venus, was a primary divinity who has various phases and faces because of her changing as a morning star, an evening star, and the divinities that are associated with the morning star and the evening star. So there's lots and lots and lots to understand about Venus. And then, you know, when we fast forward into the present, particularly with mainstream cookbook astrology, you just hear about the planet Venus. Venus rules Taurus, Venus rules Libra. Venus is about love, Venus is about relationships, Venus is about money. And it doesn't go a great deal further than that, which is a a microscopic explanation of the goddess Venus. Then we also have evolutionary astrology, where Venus is looked through an evolutionary lens and is understood from our soul's evolution, why we chose to be born with Venus in a particular sign, why we chose to be born with her in a particular house, why we chose to be born with her retrograde, and so forth. Her polarity point being the shadow archetypal integration from an evolutionary level, so on and so forth. Then we have esoteric astrology, which has a different rulership to Venus. In esoteric astrology, Venus rules Gemini. So there's many different pathways into the mysteries of Venus. And ever since I started diving deep into the goddess, I just have grown within myself. You know, I'm going through such a sacred passage in womanhood in my own life at the moment, which all women do at some point at different ages. It happens at different ages. I think you all know what I'm referring to. And it's just so fascinating and intriguing to me to be going through this fundamental life-changing passage, which is changing my life in every single way, and to be integrating the body of work of this fascinating, deeply mystical goddess is not a coincidence. All this is aligned and happened for me in my life very specifically, very purposely. And my own Venus star point is in Scorpio, and I'm a morning star, and I know exactly what that means. And I'm literally living the embodiment of that imprint, that Venus imprint. And that's one thing that you could also think about yourself. We always have 5 Venus star points on the wheel. There's never any more, there's never any less. The Venus star point is an alignment with the Sun, Venus, and the Earth. It's always an alignment between the 3. We don't often hear much about the Earth, but that is how a Venus star point is created, by the alignment between the Sun, Venus, and the Earth. And very simply put, that very specific alignment, which happens every 9 months. Every 9 months, Venus changes from a morning star to an evening star, morning star to an evening star. That order never changes. It always appears in that way. And that appearance is the alignment between Sun, Venus, Earth. So the Venus star point, very simply put, which is the head of the pentagram. So we all have the pentagram in our chart, as it were. We can superimpose it in our chart. That is, we look at the dates closest to our time of birth, 5 of them, and Venus will be in a particular sign at that time. That's your Venus star point. For example, here is a PDF file that I downloaded ages ago from Ariel Gutman's site, and it runs out about 2040 something. But the fact is, you can create this yourself anyway with an astrology software program. You just need to make the appropriate adjustments to get the dates of the Sun-Venus conjunction for the next 1,000 years if you wanted to. Well, let's just go to the present moment. So sorry, I need to share my screen first. You couldn't even see that, could you? Forgot to share my screen. Okay, there we go. This is what I was just talking about a second ago. This PDF file, which is very handy. You can download it, save it on your phone, save it on your computer, whatever you like. So August 13th, 2023, which is the last Venus star point we just had last month, which has been the talk of the town. Venus has been in Leo for the last 4 months. She's still in Leo, very long time. It'll be almost 5 months by the time she entered Leo and exits Leo. And there's the Venus star point that occurred just last month, right? So you can see, if you look at this column here and look at the letters R, D, R, D, R, D, and so on, that's just showing us that the R stands for retrograde, which is the morning star. The D stands for Sun-Venus conjunction in direct movement, furthest from the Earth. On the other side, the morning star is always closest to the Earth when she's retrograde. So morning star, evening star, morning star, evening star, right? There's that order. It never changes. Okay. So each of us have 5 of these Venus star points on the wheel. Depending on when we were born, there has been changes. So in the 80s, we had a change into the Leo star point from the Cancer star point. So the Venus star points move. Hang on, what did I just say? Sorry, it gets a little bit muddled. The Venus star points always move backwards in the zodiac. So there's the Venus Leo star point, which started in 1987, and that is the Virgo Venus star point, not Cancer. That was my mistake before when I said that. So this Leo Venus star point, many people were born in the 80s, so they were born with the Leo star point on the wheel. And many were born before that, so they have the Leo Venus star point is actually a Virgo Venus star point for people born before 1987. It can get a little bit confusing. It does take a while to get your head around it. You do need to, look at this PDF file over and over and over again. Look at the different years, look at when the changes occurred and so forth. Today, what I really want to focus on actually is the awareness of the 5 Venus star points, taking a look at what your 5 Venus star points are, plotting them in your chart, identifying which is the head of the pentagram. Because that's the most important one for all of us. The Venus star point is in the head of the pentagram. Very simply put, it's what we are here to give. What we are here to give from a deep heart-centered level, a deep soul level, from an evolutionary perspective. And how we're going to do that, how we're going to manifest that. So it's an imprint from Venus that she gave us just before our birth, which is an imprint that describes what we are here to do, creatively or otherwise, but what we are here to give more than anything else. So from the point of view of the example of my own Venus star point, which is in Scorpio, and I'm a morning star. So there's a lot to this, but very simply put, the Scorpio component really describes that aspect and imprint inside my heart and my soul that speaks to experiencing a life journey that involves the deep probing, deep investigation, deep study of life, of the soul, Scorpio. The depths of the deepest feelings, Scorpio. The deep imprints in the soul, Scorpio. and the process of navigating the deep transformational passages that I myself must undergo. And trust me, I've had many and many and many of those since I was born. And I was supposed to go through that, and I'm still supposed to go through that. It's not easy, but it is the imprint that my soul chose. The morning star factor in that Venus star point for me, my Scorpio Venus star point, corresponds to the divinity Pallas Athena. That's what the morning star corresponds to. Venus morning star is connected to the divinity Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is all about wisdom. There's many things about her. She was born from her father's head, from his mind, brain, whatever you want to call it. She's a feminine counterpart of wisdom. She's a goddess of strategy, wisdom, skill, art. There's so many things about Pallas Athena. And she is a goddess that is connected to the earth very much. She's a goddess that takes action on the earth plane. So Scorpio morning star for me is about the deep process of diving very intentionally and purposely into the deep study of soul and life, and sharing that wisdom, Pallas Athena, with my community, with the world, because my Venus star point is actually in my 10th house as well. So she's public, she's out there in the world. She's supposed to be bringing her understanding, her wisdom, her journey to her best capability for the purposes of helping other people in their own personal transformative evolutionary journey. And I feel that's indeed what I am doing to my best capability. So that's just a brief description, for example, of my Scorpio Venus star point in the 10th house. You may have that same Venus star point. You may also have it in the 10th house. Obviously, you're not me, I'm not you. We all have our own soul's unique path and journey. And so in the way in which we give through this Venus star point what we are meant to give, we will find our own way and path through that. Some of us will do it in a way where we are public, if you like, or, sharing with very specific communities. Some of us will do it more privately. I have many private elements to my life. I don't bring very much about my personal life into the public arena. That's because I'm a Scorpio Venus star point. So even though I use my own personal journey to bring forth understanding through the lessons that I encounter through the deep processes of transformative chapters in my life, I integrate that and bring that into the study of what I study and what I learn, right? And combine the two to bring forth an element of my soul through my teaching, through what I'm here to give to my best capability. So that was just a little background to kind of introduce for those of you that may not be aware of the Venus star point, or even for those of you that are still kind of not sure how to think about it, how to work with it. So from the point of view of 5 Venus star points in your chart, let's just go to the present moment, for example. Let me just bring up a chart. So this is Ruman's program in the background here, which that will come up a lot in the future. I'm just in the middle of studying some things. So this is just a transit chart for today, right? And by the way, happy 1st of October, which was yesterday for me, and rabbit. Good luck for everybody, in other words. So the last Venus star point, as I said, was the Leo morning star. The one before that was the Libran Venus star point, which ingressed into 29 degrees of Libra, October of 2022. That was the first time in our lifetime that we've seen Libra on the wheel. Now, most people on the planet will be born with a Scorpio Venus star point, unless they are older than 97 years of age. Some people are, which means that their Scorpio Venus star point is actually in Sagittarius, right? Because the Scorpio Venus star point started in 1926. And in 1922, it moved out of Scorpio. So it took, 100 years, whatever, thereabouts, to move out of Scorpio into Libra. Now, in 2026, this Venus Libran star point is going to dip back into Scorpio for one last time. So we're not through it yet. And I think what happens is when you have a Venus star point changing signs on the wheel, it generally does tend to go back one more time to the previous sign. And that takes, a 4-year period or an 8-year period to complete. And so we're in a transitional phase. And so even though the Libran star point was born and something magical has already begun with her as being the Libran Venus star point, she still needs to complete something in Scorpio. That's why she will go back there in 1926. Sorry, not 1926, 2026. So just to bring it back to the present moment and just to simplify it a little bit again, think about where your Scorpio Venus star point is, which is now the Libran Venus star point. And so those two houses will be side by side, obviously, Libra and Scorpio side by side. So those two houses have the emphasis, right, with this Venus Libran star point, which will go back into Scorpio for a short while, which kind of a long while, but it's only just one more time. But because the Venus Libran star point moves, or all the Venus star points move very, very slowly, that going back into the sign one more time, translates into a few years, because these star points move very, very slowly. Every 8 years, it'll move around about 2 degrees, right? They move very, very slowly. So you have the 5 Venus star points in your chart. There's a whole assessment on that. There's a whole level of understanding of what those 5 Venus star points mean in your birth chart. Where are they? What's their location? Are they aspecting any planets in your chart, any angles in your chart? They will be for many of you. Of course, with everything, nothing is static. So from your birth until now, those Venus star points, they have moved in your chart. They're not in the same position they were when you were born. It's a little bit like saying, this is your birth chart. And so this is the imprint of your soul, what it's decided to be born into in this lifetime. And as you grow through life and go through every single year, everything moves every second. But what we have is we have this thing called transits, don't we? Or secondary progressions and various other things, right? From the point of view of trying to make an assessment of the present, the past, or the future for that matter. It's the same with the Venus star point, the pentagram in the chart. There's an imprint of where it was when you were born, but as you go through life, it moves around. And as it moves, it, highlights and activates different things in your life. So if you were to look at your Scorpio Venus star point from the time you were born to where it is now, it's now in Libra at 29 degrees of Libra for everyone. So you're looking at where is 29 degrees of Libra in my chart. Now, you may have that Venus star point conjunct your Sun or conjunct your Mercury. or conjunct your Venus. It could be conjunct any planet in your chart, really. Well, not any planet, because you're talking about Pluto. That won't happen because of just how slow Pluto moves. The last time Pluto was in Libra was a very, very long time ago. All right, so, well, actually, no, there'll be people with Pluto in Libra. Sorry, my mistake. I forgot Pluto's only in Capricorn, isn't it? Yeah. So some people will have Pluto in Libra naturally, and they may have that Libra and Venus star point conjunct their Pluto, which would be a very, very powerful significator of things to come for you. So from a short-term sort of perspective, with regards to the faster moving planets like the Sun and Mars, we'll include the nodes in this case because the South Node is in Libra. Venus will also ingress into Libra. Mercury is very soon to ingress into Libra. So that Libra and Venus star point that occurred in October of 2022, which sits wherever 29 degrees of Libra is in your chart, these faster moving planets that are passing through the sign of Libra are energizing that star point and energizing that house. Now, it is for a short time because these are very fast moving planets, but that could be an important month for you, for instance. It depends on a number of different things. The only thing that I'm trying to really bring to people's attention is to learn to memorize your Venus star points, know where they are at the moment, and just recognize as the transiting planets move and they pass over one of your Venus star points, whether it's your natal one or whether it's the position of where it is now, this is likely to be an important time. And you can test this very simply. Well, it's not simple, it takes time, but it is worth investing in the time and doing this. Just grab a big piece of paper. Just first of all, identify your 5 Venus star points, where they are in your birth chart. Then underneath that, start from the time you were born and track your Venus star points over the years, right until present moment. It's a long task, but it's worth doing. And have a look at what was going on. If you want to, you can look at it from the point of view of, the thing is, Libra, of course, is about love and relationships, right? There's no two ways about that. But she's not only about that. The Venus star point can activate when people leave our life. Somebody passes on, transcends to the spirit world. The Venus star point can activate that as well. She did activate a lot of things in my chart when my own father transcended. So it's not about being, just looking at one direction with Venus. There's a lot of different facets to what Venus can represent. She represents what and who we love, how we receive love, how we give, our creative expression and self, our friends. She represents a lot of different aspects of life. So for the present moment, you could look at, as I was saying, the Libra and Venus star point and just check out what's kind of highlighting for you at the moment with all these planets in Libra. Venus is going to get there soon, as I said. Mercury is going to get there in a few days. And furthermore to that, we've got a solar eclipse coming up in Libra, which I'll come back and speak to soonish. It's happening on the 14th or 15th of October, I think, is it? Somewhere around there. Let me see. 15th of October. And that's at 21 degrees of Libra. Now, it is a very wide conjunction to the Libra and Venus star point, because the Venus Libra and star point, because it moves so slowly, you can't have these really wide orbs. Because if you've got the Venus Libra star point at 29 Libra, and you've got a planet at 26 Libra, or say 25 Libra, yeah, 25, 26 Libra in your chart, it is conjunct at the moment, but realistically, that Libra and Venus star point is going to take years, quite a few years, before it gets to 25, 26. That's why we can't have these really wide orbs. When you're looking at a Venus star point being conjunct or opposite or square a Venus star point, the idea is to keep quite a small orb, because then you're creating a time frame that's more accurate to the present or the next 12 months or something like that. Otherwise, you're looking at something that's coming up quite a few years down the track. And if you're looking at it in that way, then you'll be wondering, well, why is nothing happening? Well, it's not happening because it's not there yet. So just keep that in mind as well. But going back to this, these are faster moving planets that will pass over 29 degrees of Libra are just simply a way of assessing perhaps the month of October, you could say, and even September, because certainly Mars has been in Libra throughout September, although it's not going to get to 29 Libra for about a week or so, I think. And then it goes into Scorpio, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But let's just say for the month of October, at least, the archetype of Libra is highly emphasized, just as the month of August was with Leo and the Venus Leo star point. And so we had the Leo area of our chart highlighted, pulsating, activated through the Venus Leo star point, which was a morning star. It was Venus's retrograde cycle. And as I said, she was the talk of the town. I would just encourage you to continuously look at your Venus star points and look at when transiting planets are passing over your natal Venus star points and where your Venus star points have subsequently moved to from the time you were born to the present, because there'll be an energy that is highlighted and activated. It's literally like, soon Venus, soon Mercury, presently the Sun, Mars. The South Node has already gone past the Venus star point, because the South Nodes move backwards in the same way the Venus star points move backwards. So the South Node was at 29 Libra. Where was it? I think it was July of 2023, right? So in July, the South Node was conjunct the Venus star point. Now that may have been an important time for you. It may or it may not have. The point, however, is moving forward, we have all these other planets in Libra, and as they pass over the Venus star point, just think of them as energy points that activate that Venus star point, that activate that sector of your chart, that activate that area of life in some kind of way. And you can do this with every Venus star point, every time you are observing the movements of the planets throughout the year, for instance. Now, there's only 5 star points on the wheel, so we're not looking at every single month necessarily, although it depends. If you start adding in, oppositions and squares and things like that, then it's just a dog barking. Then it broadens your scope of the layers you are adding and integrating and looking at. If you want to keep it simple, just at least to start with, so you can get a handle of looking at this, you want to get used to looking at the transiting Venus star points through your chart in the same way that you are aware that we have a new moon every month. We have a full moon. We have transiting Saturn moving through Pisces at the moment. It's going to take 2.5 years to move through your Pisces house. Each planet has a different cycle, a different speed. spends a specific amount of time through a sign, therefore spends a specific amount of time through an area of your chart. Now, not every single transit is going to activate absolutely everything in life. There's a very unique timing of what the soul is prepared and ready to be conscious of at any given moment. The same could be said with the Venus star points. But on the other hand, I do feel that the Venus star points hold something different to most of the transits that we look at. And I don't feel it's always as obvious as well. There's so many subtle factors involved because there's so much depth to Venus herself. And there's so many subtle unconscious things that can be activated at different times that we are simply not even aware of. But over time, there's an awareness that comes through the experience, and we start to recognize and identify very specific things. So with Mars moving into Scorpio pretty soon, well, and then, you know, the Sun will follow, and then Mercury will follow, and then Venus will follow, right? The Mars was in Scorpio about 2 years ago or so, right? Mars has around about a 2-year cycle. So every couple of years when Mars is in Scorpio, it activates your Venus Scorpio star point. You could have a look at that and have a think about that and see whether that has shown up some kind of theme for you, some kind of pattern keeps re-emerging. And as I said, you know, with Venus, it's not just about love and intimate sexual, sensual partnerships and relationships. It's all our relationships, actually. Friendships, relationships with family, relationships with loved ones and lover, and so on and so forth. But at an even more profound, deeper level, not that those things are not profound and not deep, they are. Relationships are such a crucial element to our soul's growth. They are our mirror. That's how we grow, actually, through the relationships we have and through the various activations that take place predominantly unconsciously, which is never easy. But as you're looking at the planets passing over your Venus star points, and I would pay attention to all 5, but I would certainly be paying special attention to the head of the pentagram, which is your main Venus star point, which is what you are here to do, what you are here to give. Are you a morning star? Are you an evening star? You know, if you're a morning star, your divinity is Pallas Athena. If you're an evening star, your divinity is Aphrodite herself, the love goddess. They're very different, these divinities ascribed, connected, associated to Venus herself. And the best picture or map that I've seen is Rumen Kolev's map of Venus's cycle, Venus's heliacal phases and the transitional points, and the very specific divinities associated with her transitions from evening star to morning star. And there's some in-between bits and pieces. We did talk about it, and you did bring it up in the video that's on my YouTube channel as the first video, which is like, I don't know, is that like an introduction sector of somebody's channel or whatever? Well, I've got that video there of Rumen and myself because I love that video. I love what he shared with us, and I specifically love that map that he's created of Venus's heliacal phases and all the different divinities that are associated with morning star, evening star, and so forth. I've never seen anything like it, and I've never seen anything better. It's just magnificent, and I want to bring more of that to you guys as well, and just to my own classes and things like that over time. But you could look at that video if you want to see what I'm talking about. So when Mars goes into Scorpio very soon, it activates your Scorpio Venus star point, which now for just about all of us is our Libra and Venus star point, right? So when you're looking at Mars going into Scorpio, activating the Scorpio Venus star point, we're thinking about it more from the point of view of our natal Scorpio star point. Now, for me, it's the head of my pentagram, so that it's reasonable to think to myself, I really should be looking at this Mars transit in Scorpio. And in fact, the Sun and then Mercury and then Venus following, all these energies are really going to pulsate and bring a very specific energy and light to my Scorpio Venus star point. So the transiting planets bring their energy to the Venus star point. She embodies it, she integrates it, and then she expresses it or creates something with it or shares something. And you can do the same for yourself, wherever your Scorpio Venus star point may be, which will be in your Scorpio house. And you may have other planets there in Scorpio as well. So today's presentation was really just to get people thinking about, where are my 5 Venus star points? You need to memorize them. Are they, which one's a morning star, which one's an evening star, which one's the arm, which one's the leg? Also being aware of whether Venus was visible or invisible at your birth, which is not easy to ascertain because, as far as I understand, according to Ruman, most programs don't have that right, and I believe him. His program, however, does have it right, because that guy was one of those priests in Mesopotamia and Babylonia, and he was there writing on the clay tablets. I have no doubt about that. And he's just been reborn into this particular life. He's doing exactly the same thing, except he's not writing it on clay. Because he literally did the same thing he would have done back in those days, which was observe the sky with his own eyes, which most people don't do. Astronomers do, which class themselves as scientists. Now, the truth of the matter is that astrology and astronomy back in those times was one and the same. There was no, they hadn't been split yet. They were split through a particular era, which I think was just before the Renaissance period or somewhere around there. Astrology and astronomy became 2 separate things, and the label of astrology became pseudoscience, and astronomy remained as the scientific study of the sky, right? But the fact is that astrology and astronomy are the mother of all science, of all true science. So the observation of the sky is the most powerful way to embody the unity of sky and earth. And, you know, we take it for granted that we've got these computers and these computer programs and, you know, we're looking at a lot of different things. In some ways, it's very simplified. In other ways, it's very complex. Depends what we are looking at, how we are looking at it, our capacity and ability to understand things as well. This is a 2-dimensional chart. Ruman's is I would say multi-dimensional, but it's 3-dimensional. When you look at this chart, you can't see anything but the planets and the asteroids, the vertex part of fortune, nodes, angles, which is basically, you know, this circle is basically the ecliptic, and which is the sun's pathway as it moves through the zodiac. And so we've just created this circle to bring about what we call houses, right? To create this division of the 360-degree circle into 12 equal parts, as it were, although they're not equal here because I'm not using whole sign houses or equal house system. So there's a lot to understand and consider for sure. For the moment, I would just encourage those of you who want to understand more of the mysteries of Venus and the depth and complexity of just how much is involved in this goddess, this divinity, this planet. It goes far beyond just knowing where natal Venus is in your birth chart, and that's it. That's just kind of like the tip of the iceberg, as it were. Okay, so, and the other thing that I also had a look at for myself, which does work, is you can look at your secondary progressed Venus. And I did it for like my whole life, as it were, from the time I was born to the present. I looked at her whole movement. It's going to take 30 years in secondary progressions for Venus to move through one sign. 1 day equals 1 year. That's the basic premise of secondary progressions. So again, that's a method that we use to understand something else about the chart and our own evolution. It's not a real life transit. It's a method that we use, right, to have a very specific understanding. Secondary progressions are extremely powerful, and you can look at your secondary progressed Venus and look at when it connected to the Venus star points. So when you go back to this PDF, say for example in 2012, you had a really significant year at that time, but more so from the point of view of relationships, because I am talking about secondary progressed Venus, but also from the point of view of your own ability to love yourself, have worth, and like self-worth, self-value, a journey that is so important for all of us to consciously integrate and undergo. And we're not talking about, self-centered personality, ego-based, narcissistic self-love. We're talking about really honoring and respecting and having a sense of worth that is so deep, that goes beyond your appearance. It goes beyond what you own. It goes beyond what you do. It goes beyond your reputation. It goes beyond your knowledge base. So you can look at secondary progressed Venus and look at, as I was about to say something huge happened in the year of 2012. Well, there was a Venus star point there on the 5th of June, which was at 15 Gemini. Now, your secondary progressed Venus may not line up with that, right? So you have to fiddle around with that and work out which Venus star point corresponds to which year of your secondary progressed Venus, or you can reach out to me and we can do it together. I can show you how to do it. I can do it for you. Whatever you wish, right? So the star points on the wheel at present are Leo, Libra, Gemini, Aries, and Capricorn, right? So those are the 5 signs. I'll say them again. Capricorn, Leo, Gemini, Libra, Aries. But the Libran one will go back into Scorpio in 2026, and then we'll go back into Libra in 2030, I think it is. Let's have a look. Yeah, 2030. See that line just there, October 2030, Venus star point has gone back into Libra. 2026 is when she goes into Scorpio. So she doesn't fully commit to Libra until 2030, which seems like, you know, for some people that'll seem that's so long away. The younger you are, the more 7 years sounds like ages away. The older you are, the more you know that that goes like that. All right, so I will be back soon with the Libran solar eclipse, which we'll talk about in a few different ways. It is, in my opinion, it is, although it's quite far from the degrees of the Libran Venus star point, I feel that there's some connection there because this is a solar eclipse and it's not just the sun passing over the Libran star point. It's the sun-moon conjunction lining up with the nodes, creating what's called a solar eclipse. And solar eclipses, you know, have a window of about 6 months of activation in their manifestation and energy. So I just feel that, yeah, this solar eclipse might just be even more important for that reason, because we've got the Libran Venus star point. All right, so I'll see you guys soon. Hope you enjoyed this, and leave your questions and comments below. And also remember that my classes are now open. You can join 10-week blocks that I'm offering. We're in the first 10-week block at the moment. We're about to do class 4. You can choose a class here and there, or you can do the whole block. It's up to you. I'm open to being flexible in that way. And once again, my style is very eclectic. I bring in various traditions and teachings over many, many years of study and experience. So reach out if you want to know more about that, and also if you want some type of astrology readings or reading. See you soon. Much love. Bye for now.